here and Stephanie Barnard are here. They'll chime in too with what they saw happen. I'll talk a little bit about where the Republican Party is in this state and where it's heading. We'll talk about policy. We'll talk about redistricting, which affects this county a lot. And then we'll take questions. The real sort of meat of these events are the questions from you, and they can be on any topic you want. If you don't know the answer, we'll bluff our way through it. So, I am Jim Walsh. I'm the state party chair. I was elected state party chairman about 7 months ago. I'm also a legislator. I represent the 19th district. That is a district out on the coast. I live in Aberdeen, an old logging town on the Pacific. And it's a place most famous, unfortunately, for Kurt Cobain. We produced Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. The area used to be deep blue. It was a Union Democrat stronghold. We kept the unions, but we got rid of the Democrats. It's a blue-collar place. It's a working place. The people in the 19th district and in Aberdeen and Longview and Waco and all the areas along the coast. Westport, yes. Brad knows. Well, Brad, let's recognize Brad Clifford. He's a former legislator. Part of the program, Brad, but tell us about your run for superintendent of schools.
I am Brad Clifford. I'm running for Washington State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Our state is in crisis in our academic education process, and if you want to be at the tip of the spear of a real battle to save our generations of children to come, get in the fight with me and let's win our schools back.
Amen.
Very true. We'll talk about schools, no doubt, as we go forward this morning. Really the way we flipped Southwest Washington on the coast was, more than anything else, we stopped lying to people. We tell the truth about policy, about schools, about crime, about taxes. And it's funny, when you tell people the truth, at first, they don't know what to do. They don't quite believe the truth. But in time, it builds trust. And when I was first elected in 2016, it was a big shock. First Republican elected from the area in 70 years and all this stuff. I won by just enough that there wasn't a recount, about 500 votes. It was just over the recount. And the last time I was reelected, I was elected with 64% of the votes. So trust works. The truth works. And building trust can happen. And that's what we need to do in the state Republican Party. So 7 months ago, the former chair, somewhat surprisingly, announced he was stepping down. And I stood for chair. The chair of the state party is elected by the state committee, of course. And the state committee is comprised of the county chairs and the county members, the state committee members of each county. It's a voting universe of about 140 people, and it's a campaign. It went very well. I ended up getting elected like 95 to 15 of the people who showed up, so it was decisive. And what the state committee wanted is they wanted wins. They're tired of losing statewide. They wanted wins. And so last fall, in order to sort of turn the boat and get to a place where we were winning, we looked at what was available last fall. Remember, in odd numbered years in the state, we do our local elections. And so we saw school boards. We saw local school boards all around the state. We picked 36 of them that were in kind of swing areas, places we need to win in order to win statewide. And we approached those 36 candidates and offered the state party's help in their school board campaigns. And remember, school board races are nonpartisan. So sometimes the help of a party is a good thing, and sometimes it's not. But really, only one of the 36 people we approached said no. And then we approached the other person in that race, and she said yes. And what we did was we offered those 36 candidates in critical areas, critical school districts representing swing areas in state, help, whatever help they wanted. And mostly they wanted help with fundraising. And the state party didn't give them money. That's not what the state party does. But the state party can help them with their fundraising. So we gave them data, we gave them donor lists, donor target lists of people in their districts that had contributed to other races in the past. And we gave them template letters, talking points, ways to break the ice. People were often nervous about asking for money for political campaigns, so we helped them do that. Some of the candidates wanted to be coached up on policy. They wanted to know more about how schools operate, how school districts' budgets go, who picks the textbooks, who hires and fires principals and teachers, how all that works. So we helped them with that. In some cases, they wanted yard signs designed. They didn't know how to do a yard sign, so we did that. We did whatever they wanted us to do to help them win. We, as a party, also helped them identify voters in their districts who were either Republicans or conservatives or at least moderates, and talk to them, either knocking on their doors or sending them a postcard, whatever the way of talking would be. And once they were identified, made sure they voted last November. And we did that in a bunch of ways. Sometimes we provided the resources, the money for the local party to get boxes to collect ballots. They look like mailboxes, but they are put in friendly locations, often churches, sometimes gun shops, sometimes other retail locations, and they are basically trusted places that people can go and drop off their ballots. In some cases, we help them call or email or knock on doors and remind people to vote and send their ballots in if that's what they like to do. Although we're not really keen on putting your ballot in the mail, we prefer you to drop it off somewhere. And in some cases, we offer to actually pick the ballot up and hand deliver it to the county auditor. All of these things, the reminding and the collecting and the delivering of ballots, that's called ballot harvesting. And it's controversial in some places because in some states it is illegal. In this state, it is not. It is entirely legal. And in this state, the other guys, the other brand, the other party has been ballot harvesting for 20 years. The Republicans have not. Well, and that's over. We are now ballot harvesting. The help with the school district races last fall was basically a laboratory for us to test different ways of ballot harvesting. And we found that the two most effective ways are knocking on doors and asking people for their ballot and asking them to trust us that we will deliver it to the county auditor. And those boxes, those ballot boxes in churches and retail shops and other places. And we're going to focus on doing that all through this year. And of course, the key to the whole thing is the data. It's identifying the kind of voters we want to turn out and make sure we're not spending a lot of time and energy and money chasing people we don't necessarily want to vote. So that's an art. That is a real art, identifying through a hill of information, the reliable information on who should be voting, who we'd like to encourage to vote, because even though this area tends to vote conservatively pretty consistently, the overall turnout numbers are relatively low. And we want to get those turnout numbers up, because the way we get statewide electeds elected in this state is by encouraging people in places like Benton and Franklin and other counties to vote more to counterbalance the vote of those in Queen Anne Hill and Mercer Island. This is not new. This is known. Everybody's known this forever. We just haven't done it effectively. So, of the 36 school board races we helped with last fall, 32 of those candidates were elected. They are now almost all members of WASDA, the Association of School Directors here. And they are also members of the Conservative Caucus that is growing within WASDA and is doing great things to make the School District Directors Association less crazy and more focused on reading and writing and basic math. And that is important. So next up, to try to build a sense of winning momentum, we turned our attention to the 6 initiatives to fix what's broken in Washington. We had an advantage in doing that, as before I was elected chair, I had drafted and filed the 6 initiatives. So we knew what to do, we knew how to promote them. And we worked with a couple of organizations, you may have heard about them. One is Let's Go Washington, the other is called Restore Washington. And those 2 organizations, which are not the party, but they're friends of the party, did a lot of the lifting in getting those 6 initiatives qualified, gathering enough signatures to let them go forward. Initially, the establishment in Olympia kind of laughed it off and said there's no chance that this ragtag group will be able to get the necessary 340,000 signatures of registered voters in Washington to qualify these 6 initiatives. We got nearly 500,000 for each. And my colleagues in the legislature will talk a little bit more about the strategic implications of all this, but the initiatives were useful in turning Washington around in a couple of ways. The immediate way was they were 6 initiatives, each addressing one point policy that was urgently needed, reform urgently needed. Probably the highest profile of the 6, it's arguable, was a restoration of police pursuits of criminals and criminal suspects. As you know, after the George Floyd riots about 4 years ago in Minneapolis, state legislatures all around the country restricted how law enforcement, how police can chase bad guys. It was done under a narrative, later proved to be false, that it was over-aggressive police action that killed George Floyd in Minneapolis. Turned out later that wasn't what happened, but the story at that point had already gone around the world. And what we knew in talking to law enforcement here in Washington was there's a lot we need to do to restore trust between the state and its bureaucracies and law enforcement. But the most important single thing we could do was restore their ability, law enforcement's ability to chase, to pursue. That's what Initiative 2113 did. The other initiative that was pure policy was Initiative 2081, which creates a Parents' Bill of Rights in Washington State. This is critical for many reasons, but a number of bills that have passed through Olympia in recent years had allowed various individuals who aren't parents, teachers, school counselors, some doctors or psychotherapists, to withhold information about minor children from the children's custodial parents or guardians. This is very bad. It's bad public policy. It is immoral public policy. And what the Parents' Bill of Rights more than anything does is it says nobody can withhold information from the custodial parent or guardian of a minor child.
Amen.
And in the course of doing that, that initiative also states in state law that parents are the primary stakeholders in the upbringing. That may sound like a small thing, but it is critical for putting a wall up against some of the encroaching, undermining public policy of parental rights.
Amen.
So that was the second one that was pure policy. The other 4 were more fiscal, they were more tax related. Quickly, one, stated in law, there will be no tax in Washington State based on personal income. Many people think, yes, go ahead. Many people think that's already law. It's not. It's the tradition of the state. We don't have a personal income tax, but with this initiative, it would actually be black letter law. The other three, also fiscal, more narrowly focused, a repeal of the Climate Commitment Act, the cap and trade tax. That's the reason gas is costing $4.50 instead of $3. And it's going to go up more and more as you wait. The second one of that second set, the fifth overall, repealed the so-called capital gains excise tax. In most of the world, in most of the known universe, capital gains taxes are a form of income tax. Here in Washington, our august state Supreme Court has created a legal fiction that a capital gains tax is not a form of income tax, but is an excise tax. For those of you who didn't finish your tax certificate at Harvard Law, an excise tax is a tax on a transaction. This is controversial. The decision from the state Supreme Court was widely ridiculed, and rightly so. The U.S. Supreme Court refused the matter because they don't like telling states how to set their own tax policy. What the initiative says is we don't care whether it's an income tax or an excise tax or a Moscow mule, whatever it's called, it's repealed. And then the sixth and final of the six initiatives, a little trickier, makes optional, allows you to opt out of the state payroll tax that funds a so-called long-term care benefit. This, this long-term care benefit program is a disaster. It is intended to be a nursing home benefit. They call it insurance, the proponents of it. It's not insurance, it's not much of anything. It's a $36,000 lifetime maximum benefit. If you know anything about nursing homes, that's about 3 months nursing home care. So it's not long-term. And then there are a bunch of reasons you get disqualified. If you move out of state, you're disqualified, you get nothing. If you interrupt your working days in a way that prevents you from paying the payroll tax, you get nothing. The clock of qualifying starts over again. It's a mess. Many of the supporters of this bad deal say, oh, the opt-out, it's not really an opt-out because it will effectively overturn the program. Okay. But it also gives the program a chance to reform itself and be a benefit that someone actually would want. And we'll see if that can happen. So those are the six initiatives. They went to the legislature. They were designed as initiatives to the legislature, which means initially they go to the legislature as bills. If the legislature doesn't pass them, then they go to the people for a vote. They just need a simple majority to pass either the legislature or the people. And initially, the Speaker of the House in Olympia, not in D.C., a woman by the name of Lori Jenkins out of Tacoma, and the majority leader in the Senate, a fellow named Andy Billig out of downtown Spokane, both laughed it off and said there's no chance we're going to listen to these crackpot Republican-backed reforms, initiatives. Oh, dangerous policies, they call them. And then someone showed Jenkins and Billig's the polling. The initiatives polled at astronomically high levels of support, like 85, 88% support. And this was across the entire population of the state. So Republican, Democrat, all 65 genders. Every Democrat supported the initiatives to a large degree. And then the establishment leaders in Olympia got scared. They realized, oh no, if we and they go to the ballot in November of 2024, all these wild-eyed MAGA conservatives are going to turn out and vote for them, and we're going to lose a bunch of our members in the legislature. And they're right. So they decided to split the baby. They decided to give 3 of the initiative series and votes and ignore the other 3. If you've read the Bible, you know that splitting the baby is a bad idea. Strategy. The whole point of the story splitting the baby is that's a stupid thing to do. But nevertheless, they're accustomed to such stuff, and they decided to split the baby. So they gave hearings on 3 of the initiatives: the police pursuit restoration, the family bill, the parents' bill of rights, and the no state income tax based on income. And then they decided to ignore the 3 more specific fiscal reforms: repeal cap and trade, repeal capital gains, and opt out of long-term care. This shows you what the priorities of the political left in Washington. They didn't care about the 3 that were broader, more philosophical policy reforms. And they ignored, because they don't want to take a vote on the 3 that were money, that were direct money. So, does the political left care about policy? No. Do they care about money? Yes. It was glorious when the 3 that they agreed to give hearings and votes to came to the legislature before. It was like a revival meeting. They had seen the error of their ways. Legislators, especially in the House, who just like minutes earlier had been saying that all cops are bastards and the justice system is inherently racist, institutionally racist, and horrible, open the prisons up, let everybody out. All of a sudden, they change their tune. Oh, we love the police. We've always supported the police. And they gave the 3, restore police pursuits, parents' bill of rights, and no state income tax, fairly bipartisan votes. They passed, not unanimous, but pretty close. And so it showed a sort of cognitive dissonance on the left's part. They realized if we don't acknowledge the failure of our other policies, we're out of office. So we better come up with these sort of harebrained excuses for why we're doing a 180 pivot on our policy priorities. But we take the win, we don't care. They passed into law. They will not go, those who don't go to the people this November. They become law. And the genius part of the whole thing, our Constitution in the state is brilliant. The governor had no role. Because the initiative started with the people and were passed on simple majorities by the legislature, the governor isn't required to sign them into law and can't veto it. So all he did was shake his little fist and stand his little foot, and that's fine, do a press release, we don't care, the 3 are becoming law. The 3 others, of course, go to you, the people, for a vote this November. So that is the repeal cap and trade, repeal capital gains, and opt out. This is where I will call my colleagues up to talk for a minute. They're probably patiently waiting. It had an effect on the entire legislative session. The majority, the Speaker of the House of Olympia, the Senate Majority Leader, all their cohort cronies, they didn't know what to do. They've been winning for so long legislatively, they didn't know what it was like to play defense. We, on the other hand, play defense all the time, and we're really good at it. But they were in a strange place, and it affected everything, and it made the session, even beyond the initiatives, in my opinion, one of the most successful sessions we've had in like 20 years. So on that note, teeing you up, Harry, let's hear you go here. Tell us what happened in the Senate this session.
I see a lot of familiar faces. This is really good. For those of you that maybe don't know me, I'm Perry Dozier from Waitsburg, your 16th District Senator, and this will be the 3rd district change since I was elected 4 years ago. So now, actually, this is part of the 16th District right here, believe it or not.
Yeah.
When I was elected, I had a really tough race. I had a lady that the Democrats wanted extremely bad to get into office. She worked in Washington, D.C. For the State Department. She came over here. She painted herself as a pretty moderate Democrat, but she was so far left it was unbelievable.
They always do, Harry.
Yeah. They pumped $500,000 into her campaign running against me, which was like, holy heavens. And, I mean, she was good. She was good. She was probably the hardest candidate that I would ever have to face. Walla Walla is slipping a little bit. We're turning a little bit more purple. Please get us going, Wendy. Our biggest thing is she's the GOP Walla Walla chair. And she was, a lot of Seattle people like to retire in Walla Walla for some reason. We don't have jobs, but I guess they got money and they can buy houses cheaper in Seattle. But my Walla Walla County race was tight, probably only 4 or 5 points. Thank you, Benton County, you are my heartbeat. You took me up to 60, so we won by almost 20 points against 500,000. I didn't have near that. So that was a really good sign for me coming up for re-election. I'll just tell you real quickly what committees I serve on. I'm ranking member on business, financial, gaming, and trade. I've been ranking for 4 years on that. We deal with banks, insurance, gaming, gambling, and trade, which is trade within the state of Washington with different things that come up. We also deal with some hospitality issues too, and we're just getting a little bit more on taxation. We looked at a couple of years ago doing something with the B&O tax, trying to massage it, but it was a Democrat that was massaging it, and when she said, this is going to be revenue neutral, you know what that means? We're going to collect the same amount of money, but somebody's going to pay more than the others. That thing got scrapped, didn't even make it out of committee. Thank you for that, that we fought it good on that. The other one I'm on, K-12. Been on it for 4 years. I actually introduced a parental rights bill the first year I was in, never got a hearing. The next year, never got a hearing. Introduced it again my 3rd year, I got a hearing. I thought it was great. However, the chair of the committee, she's from Lisa Wellman, she is from Mercer Island. She worked over the summer to come up with a brochure that's called a Parental Bill of Rights. So you as a parent, you know what you got to do? You open it up and it tells you what RCW you can look up to say what right you have. It doesn't solve a thing. So, thanks Jim for bringing up the parental rights.
You built
You saved me from having to testify one more time on my bill, and you got it through. And so that was fantastic. I was so excited when I saw that. I almost felt like I won. Well, I did. So the other one I'm on, the 3rd committee I'm on is state government and elections. Yes, a lot of crap, good stuff goes through elections. And we, Jim's seatmate, Jeff Wilson, is a ranking member on that. And I'll tell you what, he is golden. He is fantastic in fighting for us for the elections and to not misuse them. We had some tough things come through this last year, and they're trying to make it easier and easier and easier for people to vote, to the point of some kids don't know how to write cursive, so they're trying to figure out how can we do this without having a signature. How about a PIN number?
Oh my God.
Yeah, okay, so we're still fighting hard on that. I also serve as the deputy whip for the Senate, and I'm also on the Senate Republican Campaign Committee, which I'm going to touch a little bit on this redistricting and how things are going in the Senate. I do want to touch briefly on the Climate Commitment Act, which the initiative is up, coming up this year to vote on. At the beginning of session, I sent an email to the Director of Ecology, Laura Watson, wanting clarification on transparency of who is buying credits and what the costs of them are. And because basically when the bill was drafted on the Senate floor, one of our Republican senators came up and they put an amendment on that there needs to be transparency in this bill. The prime sponsor of the bill got up and agreed that we should have transparency in this bill. So when we went through the first couple of auctions, I was like, oh my God, they're $50 per metric ton. So Climate Commitment Act, of course, we call it cap and trade. And if you don't understand what that means, it means there's a cap on the amount of carbon dioxide that these businesses per ton can emit into the air. And anything above that cap, then they have to buy credits per ton of emission to keep operating. And this isn't just businesses. Our public institutions do it. Washington State University spent nearly $20 million buying carbon credits. That's our taxpayers' money funding the schools. Then they came back to the legislature needing money to cover that. Then, because of all this, they increased their tuition this year to the maximum of 3%.
The kids.
What is this state doing to us? They're taxing us to death. So what I ended up finding out I did some more work on who is buying credits. Between 10 and 15% of the credits bought through the first 4 auctions were bought by investment companies. Cap and trade. So investment companies were buying them, thinking that these businesses, if they don't have enough credits at the end of the year to cover themselves, they're going to get fined or they're going to have to buy credits from the investment companies. Once this initiative came out, we went from $63 on order auction per metric ton to $25.
Amen.
You know why? We're afraid it's going to get repealed. And it will get repealed if we vote, if everybody gets out and votes on it. It will get repealed, that price of gas will come down, and then, because all of this is absorbed by us. It's not just gas. Anything that is hauled with fossil fuels, you're going to see that escalate. So that was a really good thing to find out and to get that on. I think for the others, but I want to touch on 2 bills real quick. I don't want to be up here forever, but these are 2 really important bills too that helped us. Senate Bill 5770. This was a bill that would allow by a councilmatic vote, like a county commission or city council could raise your property taxes from the statutory 1% to 3%.
Each year.
Each year, yes, each year. By a councilmatic vote, not the vote of you guys, by them. And the day before this was to be heard on the Senate floor, we were in our Senate caucus meeting and we said, this is BS, it's coming up tomorrow, let's get a press conference going. So by 8 the next morning, the Senate had a press conference held and it blew up through the media. The bill never got heard. The prime sponsor, Jamie Peterson, who is an attorney, he's from the Seattle area, was the prime sponsor, and he's also the floor leader, sharp guy, pulled his own bill. It scared the Democrats so much that 2 of the Democrats that signed on to the bill, who are up for election, one's running for Congress, took their names off.
Right.
Because the people got upset.
Did you actually take your name off a bill you put your name on? Or was this bending the rules?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you can do that, how you can take your name off. But they did that. So I'm gonna just touch on one more. It was a House bill. This came at the very end of the year. So we knew this bill was gonna come. It was established at the beginning of the session. But what the Democrats like to do when they got crappy bills, they like to wait until close to the end of session, and then what they really like to do is run them late at night. When nobody is listening, nobody's watching TVW, nobody's around, they like to do it at night. So this bill, it was House Bill 1589. It's called the Clean Energy Bill or something like that. So it sounds great, doesn't it? Just like Climate Commitment Act. I mean, I think you're doing really good things. Clean Energy Bill. We basically called it the PSE bill, which is Puget Sound Energy. Puget Sound Energy is the largest energy provider in the state of Washington. They're based basically up and down Puget Sound. They reach over the mountain, I think, maybe towards Ellensburg, I believe it is. They serve 1.1 million electrical companies, electrical people, 1.1 million, 900,000 gas customers. Of that, 800,000 of those are residential natural gas customers. They are a foreign-owned company. They are registered by the state of Washington under the UTC, Utilities and Transportation Commission. And they are a monopoly, meaning that you don't have a choice if you are in their service area to go buy your electricity or your gas elsewhere. The UTC, who regulates them, 3 members selected by the governor. That's a good mix, isn't it? Yeah, so you know where we're headed here. 50% of the energy production that PSE has is fossil fuel driven. Coal, natural gas, over 50%. Okay, so carbon credits, guys, what do you think? They're spending a lot of money on carbon credits. So who's going to take the brunt of this? They've already applied to the UTC for a 17% electrical rate increase, followed by a 20% rate increase, because they need to get more money to be able to phase out of natural gas and out of the fossil fuels. So they're going to raise the rates on their customers to help them benefit to get out of that, and then they'll take a slow weaning of natural gas away from their customers. This isn't going to go like this. You know, they're not going to shut you off tomorrow, but what you're going to see is this trickle over time that those customers will have to retrofit their homes. I believe the building industry of Washington, the IEW, is estimated to retrofit your home from gas to electricity is between $40,000 and $70,000. And that'll be borne by the consumer, who has no other option because it's a monopoly they're captured there. So the best way to get out of that, vote down the climate commitment act. Then they don't have to worry about it. Now, it's only there now. If we don't vote it down, will it trickle over here to the east side?
Yeah.
Maybe. The next largest supplier that I can think of is out of Spokane, Vista. And Vista serves all of Spokane. They go all the way down to, I believe it's Lewiston. So this was a bill that when it was introduced on the floor, we fought it for over 3 hours with amendments. We got nothing, which is usually what happens. Then we go to final passage, and on final passage, as we were fighting it at the very end, Jim, I don't know what it was that Shelley brought up, what order was it or something, that questioned the
Right.
bill and its statute. I can't remember what it was.
The question was the process of how the bill came to the Senate. There was an allegation that it didn't follow the constitutional rules for how a bill proceeds. And Shelley Short, one of the Republican senators, brought it up, and
Yeah.
she was right.
She dropped a bomb on the Senate. You should have seen this. It was like, bam! The Lieutenant Governor, the President of the Senate, hits the gavel. He and council go meet for an hour and a half. He comes out, we sit back down, and when he gets up there, he's really, I like him. He's fair. I didn't think this was going to happen, but he goes, this bill mess. It never should have been introduced on this floor, and started naming off all the problems with the bill. We thought it was dead. No, the D's worked all night, introduced it the next day, and we still passed it. It got through, it went to the House, and we thought we were going to get it in the House. Maybe Stephanie, I know it was a long debate on it. You guys, yeah, you guys. I guess they ended up strong-arming a lot of the Democrats who wanted to vote it down, but whatever. The doggone bill passed, and the other thing that they put on the bill, which made no absolute sense at all, they put an emergency clause on there. When you put an emergency clause on a bill, it basically takes away the referendum process. Your voices are done. You can't even do it. No, it goes into effect the minute the governor signs. We fought it on the floor. Why did you put, why do we need an emergency clause? It's not an emergency. It's what the Democrats like to do to make sure that your voice is not heard. Anytime you see an emergency clause, you're out of the process. So, I love these meetings because it gets me all riled up. But, thank you very, very much. I look forward to seeing all of you. I need to apologize right now. I'm very sorry. I will not be at the Lincoln Day, the Benton County Lincoln Day, because that day, my best friend's son, my best friend who was the best man in my wedding, his son's getting married, and my son is his best friend, and he's the best man for him. Okay, we have a little bit of a conflict here. I can come here and back over there, so I'm sorry I'm gonna miss the Lincoln Days dinner, but, thank you, Benton County, you guys have just been awesome for me. I appreciate it.
So Perry's in the state senate, I'm in the state house.
Oh, God.
Stephanie, she's gonna correct everything that was wrong. So Stephanie is with me in the state house and is one of our leads on environmental issues, which includes this stupid natural gas ban that isn't a ban or whatever. So Stephanie, tell people what happened.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. But first, before I get started on 1589, I just want to say that Jim Walsh, when he first started speaking today, he said, one of the things he said that I thought was hilarious was, well, if I don't know, we're just going to, dig our way through this. And I'm like, he has never done that in his entire life. He guessed his way through an answer. He is an incredible leader and someone that knows all the facts. You can always go to him and say, Jim, explain this to me. How does this work? What am I missing? What are the intricacies of this bill that I need to know about? So for a freshman legislator, that is key, to have someone that you can trust and you can go to and ask for advice and support, and he'll tell it to you straight. And he's got that experience, and he has the passion for I think everyone in this room has a passion, or you wouldn't be here, for changing things in Olympia. But unlike anything I've ever seen all the way at the state level, to have his leadership, we are so blessed to have him leading us, especially at this time. So I feel so fortunate to be able to work with him. I can't wait to have him governor. And with his leadership, I definitely feel like the momentum is there, the leadership is there. I know ballot harvesting is not sexy. It's not a sexy word. It's not something that really gets people excited.
Yeah, but winning is.
But winning is sexy, right? And we really need to get our numbers up in Olympia and change the way it's run, because it is so lopsided. It's really hard not to get discouraged, but you can make progress little by little. One of the things that I do in the legislature, one of the committees that I serve on is energy and environment. So that is a huge amount of the bills that we see because of our governor's commitment to the climate. And there is a lot to unpack with that. And the other committees that I serve on, one is finance, so that's all things taxes. And I'm assistant ranking on that, and then the other committee that I'm on is economic development and veterans. So that is and innovation. So it's innovation, community, economic development, and veterans. And that encompasses a lot in just that one committee that I'm assistant ranking on as well, because my background is in business and economic development. So with that, let me just say that if we were in the Olympics, right, for the legislature, you'd have a gold medal, a silver medal, and a bronze medal. And I just want to talk about crime for a minute. Crime, we are #1 in the state. Yay, we get the gold medal for retail theft. Isn't that awesome? Oh. Aren't we so proud of ourselves? We're #1 in the nation. #1 in the nation. There is nowhere else in the entire nation, not downtown Chicago, not downtown New York City, it's Washington State, #1 in the nation for retail theft. That's our gold medal. That's what we have to be so proud of. And #2, we have property theft. So not just retail, but property crimes. That is #2. So we get the silver medal for property crime for the entire nation. That is so embarrassing. That is something that we should not be proud of. And #3, the bronze medal, is car theft. We're #3 in the country for car theft. Let's see. What would we do to change that? What you did What Jim started, you finished were the initiatives. I've never seen anything like I have seen in Benton County. The effort to get signatures. I was at the fair. I was there with many of you here to promote the initiatives, to gather signatures for those initiatives. That was you. That was not the legislature. These are the people's initiatives. Because the scale is so imbalanced in Olympia that we can't get the votes for something like that. It has to come from a grassroots level, and that is built up, and the community gets so excited about it. And we're not just talking about red communities, we're talking about hard blue. They're excited about it too. They want crime to go away just as much as we do. And we can do this. It's been Democrat policy that has led us to our trifecta, our gold, our silver, and our bronze in Washington State. And that is a joke. We are a joke. As far as police and their ability to have what they need to be able to do their job, who changed that? You changed that. They came back, and I give Jim a ton of credit for this because he's the one that wrote them and came up with the things that we needed to work on for these initiatives. But you're the ones who got the signatures. You were the ones that spent your days and your weekends out there at wherever you were gathering signatures. You're the ones that made sure we got them all in. It really was you. And we were able to get 3 of those passed. And that is a huge accomplishment. But they never would have gotten there without you. Never. You were hearing from Senator Dozier. It took him 3 years to just get a bill heard. So we have police. Last interim, I went on a drive along, right? Drive along, thank you. I knew drive along was wrong. I went on a ride along for about 4 hours with the Benton County Sheriff's Department. And it was on a Saturday night. I really wanted to see what the scene was. I wanted to see, and sure enough, I didn't think it was this prevalent in the Tri-Cities, but sure enough, there was somebody that was causing issues in a neighborhood, and they were given the description. We heard over the radio that we had the description of the truck, the plates, and just what they had been doing, and we saw this truck. The plates were matching. We got behind the truck and put on the lights, and they were off like a shot. They were off like a shot. And we didn't pursue it. Because we couldn't. No, we couldn't. Yeah, there was no imminent threat. So it is what you did is transformational. Is transformational for us. That's the power of you. And I just was so grateful. I was so grateful for the people that worked so hard to sign this. As a legislator, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go out and try to get signatures. But I could sure say, hey, look at that table over there. Do you see what Brad Clifford's doing over there? Go over there and look at those initiatives. It was just incredible to see all of you working on this. The second initiative that was passed through this year, the Parental Bill of Rights. I am a mother of 6. I mean, they're all mine. There's no blended things here, but it's when I was in Franklin County Republican Party, the one thing that was most critically important to me was the school board. I remember, this is what we do as a party, right? We say what we do is we get Republicans elected, and we needed some conservative voices on our school board. So I took it upon myself as the vice chair at the time to go out and, just like what Jim was saying, to recruit. And we needed to build a bench who is willing, who has the knowledge and background to have that influence and for our schools. And I had probably 4 or 5 people in mind. I went to talk to 5 people, and 3 of the 5 said they would run. And 2 of the 3 people that ran won. So, and that was 10 years ago, but it made all the difference for the Pasco schools. And one of them is even still there today. So, and one, Steve Christensen just, which is a little scary to me, has been replaced now with somebody that is much, much liberal. So we need to make sure that we're looking at our local school boards. There was a bill, and I can't remember the number, 2331, was it 2331?
Yeah, 2331.
Okay, so, 23 scared me to death, and it passed. It's a Monica Repstonier bill, and she's from Vancouver, I believe, right? Yeah, so the mindset is just boggling to me. So it's that you can't opt out of a certain curriculum. You have no choice. And you'll lose, and Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but 100% of your funding can be pulled if you don't teach the curriculum they decide and provide.
Right.
I mean, how terrifying is that as a parent?
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it is, so the parental bill of rights, more important than ever. Schools are where it's at. That is the most important thing we can do for our state, is to make sure that our kids are getting a good education. That's the future of this state. We don't want to introduce bias and all of the left-leaning agenda into our school's curriculum. That's terrifying. I mean, we already have that in higher ed. We have plenty of it to go around. So we have to protect our kids. We have to. That's our number one. The third was the income tax, that initiative, and everyone on my committee, which was finance, it was my committee that heard that along with Ways and Means in the Senate, they were saying, this is a nothing burger. It does nothing. It doesn't do anything. And I said, you want to bet? What it does is it provides to all the Washingtonians the ability to not have to pay an income tax and have it in writing, and codify it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be an income tax. What does that do for you? What does that do for you? It gives you certainty. It gives you opportunity. It gives your business a chance to say, hey, let's take a risk and invest in something here. It gives us that competitive edge against other companies and businesses and opportunities that we may want to take that are not, people are with an income tax. Why would they come to Washington State? What is going to incent us to innovate, to take chances and risks? But this is so powerful and so meaningful that their best defense is to say it's a nothing burger. It's not nothing, and you did this. I can't tell you, it just felt so good to vote for these and to bring those wins back to the community and to all Washingtonians that work so hard to get in there. The other three initiatives, we just talked about 1598. That came through my committee, and it is what they will tell you, the other side of the aisle will tell you that it is it's just a plan. It's just a strategy. It's nothing. This isn't a rate bill. We're not calculating rates here. We're not. There's nothing here. It's look elsewhere. It's not that big of a deal, but it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal because and it's 60% of what they have, or they're up over 60% of what PSC, Puget Sound Energy, of their energy they provide is fossil fuel based. So 60%. And do you know what that does for you? Even though PSC doesn't serve us, it's still going to increase your cost to natural gas by 20 cents a gallon. If you use natural gas, that's fine. They're not going to come rip it out.
Good.
Yeah. But on March 14th, it wasn't a ban that went into effect, but all new buildings, thanks to the Building Code Council, and to any future governors that might be, here or there or everywhere, I say, let's get rid of the Building Code Council. It's completely fighting against the new rules that are being developed by the Building Codes Council way before I ever ran for state legislature. And I can remember sitting there for 3 hours, just with my computer on and doing other work, thank goodness, but waiting for my turn. You know how that feels, you're just like sitting there waiting, and if any of you have ever done remote testimony, you're like, But yeah, that's what I was doing, just sitting there waiting to testify for all of our business members at the chamber, because I worked in my past life as the Tri-State Regional Chamber of Commerce. And waiting to testify for that for 3.5 hours, to testify to nobody. I testified to no one. No one. No one. Except me. I don't know when they were going to listen. There was one man that was running the deal, and no none of the board members, no members of the council were there. Speaking to myself, they don't care. They don't care what we say. It's just, and so what they do, it's so agenda driven. It's driven from the top down. The governor says, we want this, they do that. It's not a council, they don't work as a council. It's just, they set the rules that then we have to comply with. That's not legislated. No, it's not going through the correct process. So now we're leaving our future in their hands. And it's not okay. And the cost of natural gas are going to go up, it's inevitable. And it's not just from this bill. It's from the entire culture of Olympia and the Democrats. So I want to end on a positive note. Yeah. We fought so hard on that bill. We fought and fought and fought. I'll end on a positive note by saying we had huge success for our community this session. I'm so pleased. I've been working on the Nuclear Energy Caucus, doing tours. I got 14 members of the legislature to come to this side of the mountains and actually tour Newscale and Framingham and the Columbia Generating Station and Hanford, and really clarify that line between legacy waste and advanced reactor technology, and the difference and how safe nuclear energy is.
Amen.
And we did a tour over in Puget Sound. We went to Terra Power, where their own Bill Gates' nuclear facility, and Ultrasafe, and ZAP, and Avalanche, and all the fission and fusion. So that those efforts paid off in a huge way. For the first time it's been a decade since Aaron Brown got a joint legislative committee, funding for a joint legislative committee to look at small modular reactors. For the very first time in decades, there was funding to actually go into the feasibility study for a small modular reactor at $25 million for the Tri-Cities region, and that is, I can't even tell what a huge thing that is. To say the term nuclear in Olympia, you say it and come from around. Yeah. But and last year I had a bill that would introduce just the term advanced nuclear reactor technology into CETA. They didn't want anything to do with it. But after those tours and after all of our nuclear energy caucus meetings that we had once a month during session and 2 times during the interim, things changed. And we got $25 million for feasibility for SMR. So we can look towards the future now in a way that's really meaningful for energy production that is dependable, reliable, dispatchable, and you know what? You can turn on the lights, and if it's not windy, and if it's not sunny, they'll come on. Huge win, and the other economic development bill that I got was the Match Act, and that to me, it's all about if we can put a little more money into our pockets, keep it there, we're more likely to prosper, right? Don't you want to keep more in your paycheck? Yeah. I do. I would love to keep a little more in my start saving, we can start planning for the future. They're not smarter than us. We shouldn't be taxed to the gills, and it's not stopping, even with CCA, even with all the money that we've had flying around in Olympia. They still want more. They still want more. It's unbelievable. So I started a program called the Match Act that would provide 20% match for any grants that you would apply for from the federal government. And you might say, that's not very fiscally responsible, but the money's there. The money's there. And if we can get it from the feds, then we're more likely to not have them raise taxes on us. So let's bring some money here for big projects here, like SRs and things where we can have some reliable energy sources. And over time, I know it's an investment initially, but over time, our rates will go down if we stop spending our money on things that don't work. So anyway, thank you so much for your support.
Questions. We do want to touch on the redistricting. We've heard us reference a couple times this, and Benton County has been in the crosshairs this whole thing. Quick update on that. So this all started after the 2020 census. Remember, every 10 years we do the census, and then states take the census information and redraw the lines of their congressional districts and their legislative districts based on changes in the population. People are moving with it, what they're doing, coming in and going out. In 2020, we had the census. In 2021, our state uses a bipartisan commission to take the census information and redraw the lines of the legislative and congressional districts. That went to plan, sort of. The commission missed its deadline slightly, but the state Supreme Court allowed them to finish the work and get their redistricting plan through. That was approved, everything went forward. Then a lawsuit by a left-wing group out of Seattle started in about 2022, claiming that the post-2020 census redistricting was discriminatory against Latino voters in Yakima. This was a left-wing group in Seattle talking about redistricting in Yakima. The lawsuit kind of banged around federal courts, they filed it in federal court, and ended up in the hands of a Seattle federal judge. So Seattle plaintiff suing, Seattle left-wing federal judge talking about Yakima legislative districts. And the Seattle federal judge said, I believe that the Yakima districts were designed intentionally to reduce the voice of Latino voters in Yakima. So I'm going to draw a new map that affects a bunch of districts that aren't in Yakima to fix the problem in Yakima. And he did this, and this affected several districts here in Tri-Cities. It affected several districts over the mountains in like Pierce and King County. So he changed the lines of a bunch of districts outside of Yakima, and this is the best one, he actually reduced the number of Latino voters in the original Yakima district that started the lawsuit. So it clearly was not designed to improve or concentrate Latino voters in Yakima. That was just the excuse that the left-wing plaintiffs groups in Seattle used to get a left-wing judge to redraw the districts. And really, even better than all that, Nikki Torres, a Latina state senator from this area and a little bit north, got moved out of her district in the Seattle judge's map. So they got rid, the map gets rid of the one Latina state senator from this area, reduces the vote of Latino voters in the contested Yakima area, and changes a bunch of other districts that aren't in Yakima. It is a rotten deal to its core. But it does affect Benton County and Tri-Cities in that it bumps both of your districts, even though they're not party to the dispute in Yakima. And we are concerned, I mean, all kidding aside, we tried to get this appealed, we tried to get a stay that would prevent the judge's map from taking effect, and it went all the way to the US Supreme Court, where Eleanor Kagan, one of the justices there, is assigned to the West Coast for these kinds of things, said, no stay, we're gonna let the Seattle judge's map stand. The case is far from over. We'll continue to appeal the judge's map, but for this year's election, the judge's map is the map. It is the law, and the districts that both Stephanie and Perry represent are now changed, as Perry said. This is now several times in the last few years that yours has been mocked with. And this is highly controversial. We don't like it one bit. It makes a mess of Yakima. There's now a district that has no incumbent legislators in it, and they're gonna have to all have new people, or people are gonna have to move. So it's a mess. And we are gonna continue to fight this. But I think in the court of public opinion, we have to let people know that the Seattle judge's map it's a con. I mean, it's not legit. It doesn't solve the explicitly stated problem in the lawsuit. It just used the lawsuit as an excuse to re-rig the map in favor of one party, the Democrat Party.
I have a question for you. So why was there no dissenting? Why was there no dissent?
Well, because they don't, it wasn't a full, it was an emergency request for a stay that would have frozen the judge's map.
Stay or no stay, you're not gonna comment on.
Correct, and I mean, literally, the court's ruling was 2 sentences. All it was is, we're not going to issue the stay, see you later in court. So, the lawsuit itself continues, but the emergency action that would have put aside the judge's map was declined. So the judge's map stands. So this is a bad deal, and what it is the left in this state, we're reading the tea leaves. It's not just the initiatives, it's not just the natural gas ban goofball thing. They knew that the tide was shifting against them, and this is, in my opinion, a desperate play to try to win some seats in Olympia when they don't need any more seats.
Well,
Go ahead, Bert.
let's just talk about the Senate side of things, so you guys understand how egregious this was. First of all, this affects 0 Democrats in the legislature. Nobody got moved. And in the Senate alone, what we have right now, we have Curtis King out of Yakima, who represented the 14. By 10 blocks, he's now in the 15. So he's not in the 14. So, and he's up for election. As Jim said, Nikki Torres now is in the 16 that I'm in. So, and she was in the 15. We have Brad Hawkins, who's out of Wenatchee, in the 12th. He got redistricted out, he's up for election. He has to move from Wenatchee to East Wenatchee to do it. We have, I think that's it for those 3. And then the other dynamics that we have going on in the Senate right now too, is that we have 3 senators that have been long-term senators for us that have retired. One's out of the 4th District, which is Spokane Valley. Senator Mike has been fantastic on law and justice issues for us. We have Senator Linda Wilson out of the Vancouver area, which is the 17th. She has been like our lead Republican budget writer.
And they got affected by the redistricting too.
Yes,
Their
they
district got
did.
messed with.
And so did Senator Ann Rivers in the 18th, just north of there. She got redistricted out too. Well,
She's not rerunning.
but she's not rerunning, but she got redistricted out anyway. So we've got 3 retirements, we've got an open district in the 14th. When I mentioned the 14th, when they changed the 14th, went from a +2 Republican to a +14 Democrat district. The Democrats want in the worst way, in my opinion, to get to that super majority. I think that's why when I ran, why they pumped so much money to get the 16th back, it has not been held since prior to 2000. And they're not gonna get it, because I'll be back in it. So, as for the ones that are there, I really don't know what the intentions, Curtis and what Nikki are. I understand though that Nikki can remain as a senator representing the 15th for the next 2 years because she's mid-cycle. But then after that, she's out of district. So, but I don't know what their plans are. But we're only a month from filing, guys. We got a mess.
As far as representatives, same thing, he said. So we've got changes. I no longer represent a lot of Richland. So I'm trying to think of what the furthest is. My legislative office is at Hughes in Parkway, and that's no longer in the district. So I have moved my office, more south, but I'm not quite sure what the line is. So the National River, and then I have West Richland now, which I never had before, and all the way to Prosser, just a little bit south of the Amazon, all the way to Prosser.
Gerrymandering, isn't it?
Oh,
It's gerrymandering, using the excuse of undoing gerrymandering to do more gerrymandering.
exactly.
So Alice, welcome to the other side of the glass. Yeah, let's go, questions.
You maybe elaborate a little bit on how the effect in Washington is, and my understanding is the census has changed, not just to count people who are citizens, but to count everybody. And I've heard how that's affected other states and how many representatives that they can have. How's that affecting Washington?
Yeah, it hasn't shown up in this particular case yet, but what you're saying is true. The census population counts for allocating members of Congress and moving, you don't make new legislators, but you move the lines of their districts. Doesn't ask whether the people in the population are here legally or not. So illegal immigrants, illegal residents are counted, sort of, and then those numbers are used to determine the concentration and number of legislators. Right, it concentrates population in urban areas, which gives them more representation.
Those changed that long ago, right?
Incarcerated are also counted.
No.
Okay, so the incarcerated are counted, so the 16th now, it just used to have Washington State Penitentiary, now it takes in Coyote Ridge. So, yeah, we're representing a lot of incarcerated people.
People who don't vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, another question,
That's right.
they're counted, even if they don't vote, they're counted for the allocation of population centers.
And the representatives are chosen based on that number, that's the problem.
Correct, that is correct, and that is a problem.
So how did this, if you go back to the previous thing, how did this Seattle organization get standing in order to make that lawsuit? Because I know a lot of lawsuits get thrown out because the people who are making lawsuits don't have standing. And then, well, we'll just start with that one. But the other one, the question that I had was, considering that this is a voting rights issue based on racial lines or whatever, and it's the objective result of this is on its face partisan, what is the likelihood that this goes all the way to the Supreme Court?
Well, the first answer is they found a front man, a woman, to be the lead plaintiff who was from here, but the money in the organization was from Seattle. The Supreme Court's refusal to issue a stay was not a final ruling case. It was a procedural motion to try to put the judge's map aside. So the case is still active, and it's currently in the Ninth Circuit appeals, the Ninth Circuit of the three Western states plus the last one.
Locally, for the three Western states.
Yeah, so it's in the, exactly, it's in the federal appeals court yard now where it's being played out, and in theory, it's very likely will end up back at the U.S. Supreme Court because they've already looked at the stay request. So, and this is it's all under Federal Voting Rights Act, so the state courts aren't involved, it's all federal.
I was wondering, for our voter pamphlet, I've noticed that the language is getting increasingly more difficult to understand as the years have gone on. Who's going to be writing the abstracts and the pro statements for our voter pamphlets, for the initiatives?
The Secretary of State is offering that to me as
Who else can do it?
who writes.
Well, who's gonna write that? And make sure that the language is very plain and easy to understand, because we're getting this kind of thing where even the titles are starting to get real misleading. And so I just want to make sure that the clarity for those initiatives is like the number one priority for people who are.
I'll check this for you. You know, he speaks a different language. No, but I think he's gonna write it, so I'm gonna make sure.
No, and not only, I mean, we're gonna work with the groups I mentioned who are involved in supporting missions. So Let's Go Washington, Restore Washington, we will all work together to write the pro statements. The con statements, it's gonna be this group that's funded by Nick Hanauer, the Seattle Trust Fund guy, who says he's a venture capitalist, but really, he's an inheritor of money. And he's a big left-wing guy. His organizations, which are basically the mirror image of Let's Go Washington and Restore Washington, some combination of them will write the cons. And then generally they ghostwrite them for some underrepresented individual who will cry, all kinds of
And
things.
want to get a little peek at what they're doing. I think it's defend Washington.
That's